Oh, okay.
When do we want it?
Now.
What do we want?
Climate justice.
When do we want it?
Now.
What do we want?
Climate justice.
When do we want it?
Now.
Ain't no power like the power of the people, because the power of the people don't stop.
Say what?
Ain't no power like the power of the people, because the power of the people don't stop.
Say what?
Ain't no power like the power of the people, because the power of the people don't stop.
Say what?
People not profit. 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 Woo! Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Netra. Thank you all for coming out to this EXIM action today.
My name is Aria, and Nathan and I are high school climate organizers with Fridays for Future in the Sunrise Movement. But first, before we start, we acknowledge that we are on stolen land from the Piscataway and Anacostan people. Indigenous people are leaders in preserving, respecting, and protecting this planet, and there is no climate justice without them. We are here today because the U.S. Export-Import Bank, or EXIM, is using taxpayer money to finance fossil fuel projects overseas.
At COP26, the Biden administration promised to end international finance for fossil fuels. But U.S. EXIM has continued to provide over $1 billion in financing new fossil fuel projects. Most recently, $500 million US to expand oil and gas wells in Bahrain. U.S. EXIM is also considering putting billions of dollars into new fossil fuel projects in Guyana, Papua New Guinea, and Mexico. People not profit. People not profit. People not profit. People not profit. Two of EXIM's climate advisors have already quit over the bank's continued fossil fuel financing. This EXIM conference right now is where all the bank's senior officials and relevant businesses are in one place.
U.S. EXIM is using our taxpayer dollars to fund the very fossil fuels that are devastating the planet. This bank has used billions of dollars to fund atrocious human rights abuses, including in the Mozambique liquefied natural gas project. With only to the end of the decade to slash our carbon emissions in half and prevent the worst effects of climate change, we need to end fossil fuels. No more coal, no more oil.
Keep that carbon in the soil.
No more coal, no more oil.
Keep that carbon in the soil.
And not only does EXIM's continued financing of fossil fuels go against Biden's climate commitments, but now is a chance to push him before November to deliver on his promises and end international financing of fossil fuels. When our Earth is under attack, what do?
Stand up, fight back.
When our Earth is under attack, what do?
Stand up, fight back.
When our Earth is under attack, what do?
Stand up, fight back.
The U.S. is the biggest historical carbon emitter globally. It is our responsibility to facilitate a just transition, pay up for loss and damage to colonize and developing countries. Pay up, pay up, pay up for loss and damage, pay up, pay up, pay up for loss and damage, pay up, pay up, pay up for loss and damage. And now we have some amazing speakers to discuss the urgency for EXIM to stop funding fossil fuel projects immediately, and considering that young people will live on this planet far longer than anyone else in that building. First up, we have Noah Green-Huvras, youth climate activist and organizer with Fridays for Future in New York City. She's organized various climate mobilizations, including the historic March to End Fossil Fuels last September. Passionate about writing and environmental communication, she has been published in Teen Vogue and documents her work in the Instagram account The Teenage Lorax. She's graduating from high school this year and will attend Cornell College of Agriculture and Life Sciences as an environmental and sustainability major for the next 4 years. Please welcome Noah.
Thank you. Go stand here. Thank you. Just yesterday, I sat in New York City at the Natural History Museum as the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres delivered a historic address on the climate crisis. There was something uniquely pressing about sitting in a museum that documents the extinction of hundreds of species while we had this conversation. Sitting in the main room of that museum, the Secretary General Antonio Guterres declared, "In the case of climate, we are not the dinosaurs, we are the meteor." But when the Secretary General says we are the meteor, I have a pretty good feeling he isn't talking about us. I have a pretty good feeling he isn't talking about the family of 5 who have become climate refugees seeking safety from extreme heat. And I don't think he's talking about the children in Pakistan who are wading through floods with all of their belongings in their one hand. And I don't think he's talking about youth like myself who sat in calculus class when the skies turned orange 1 year ago, not sure of how they were getting home. So if we're not the meteor, then who is? Well, let me tell you. The meteor is the leaders of banks, including the leaders of EXIM in this very building, who prioritize greed and short-term gain over public health and safety. OECD, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development countries' export credit agencies, such as EXIM, give $40 billion in total to fossil fuels, 5 times the amount they spend on clean energy annually. These are adults who have reached a level of cognitive dissonance that they think giving fossil fuels $40 billion annually in public money is an okay and moral thing to do. The meteor is also the politicians allowing these banks to use our money to fund a climate crisis we bear the burden of. If they serve us, then why are they ignoring our cries, our votes, and our pleas for a livable future? Why do we have to beg so that people around the world can have their basic human rights assured? What does a democracy look like underwater? The meteor is the fossil fuel companies who have decided decades ago that the public didn't get to have a say. I wasn't alive yet when the men at ExxonMobil read that report and decided kids like me don't need to have a livable future. But I am alive now, watching as the people in this building make that very same decision. And I, among many others behind me, will not stand for it. As of today, there is no hurling space debris threatening to make contact with our planet. Instead, there is a network of people in power who are complacent with the destruction that hurts the rest of us. That is worse. They are funding fossil fuels, knowing that it kills people today and in the future. They have blood on their hands.
Thank you, Noah. We are unstoppable. A better world is possible. 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 Our next speaker is Daniel Mule, who is EXIM's policy manager, leading work on just energy transition and extractives. He trained as a lawyer in the US and UK, and his work focuses on fiscal reforms, corporate tax practices, transparency, anti-corruption, justice, and energy transition issues in the oil, gas, and mining sectors. Please give it up for Daniel.
Thank you so much, and I love the energy out here. Can we get one more? Woo! Yes, I love that. I love that. Thank you all for being out here today. It's so important that we show up today and tell the U.S., tell our policymakers that we need to stop funding and financing fossil fuels. And the U.S. Export-Import Bank continues to be a black eye in the face of President Biden's climate agenda and commitment to international climate finance. The bank is aided and abetted by fossil fuel companies, their lobbyists, and their co-conspirators in Congress. That's right. Between 2017 and 2021, the bank provided nearly $6 billion in financing for fossil fuels. That's right. And only a paltry $120 million in comparison for clean energy. And that's according to a tally that Oxfam and Perspectives Climate Group put together recently. At least 60% of EXIM's current financing goes to support fossil fuel producing or fossil fuel dependent sectors like oil, gas, and aviation. Shame. And instead of shifting its portfolio to end export credit agency support for fossil fuels and scale up its support for renewable energies under the Biden administration, EXIM continues to double down on fossil fuels. While EXIM has supported one large and often highlighted solar project in Angola, This single project is insufficient to compensate for EXIM's allocation of public funds to support fossil fuels all around the world. And in the lead up to that EXIM board vote to approve $500 million in financing to a project in Bahrain, we already heard earlier today 2 members of its advisory group on climate already quit advising EXIM out of protest. That's right. And it raises the question, should the U.S. really be allocating public funds to support oil drilling in the Middle East? Is that the best use of resources? But the Bahrain project is just the latest in a laughably long list of projects that EXIM continues to finance, fossil fuel projects, oil and gas projects, including in Papua New Guinea, Indonesia, Guyana, the Bahamas, and even in the U.S. Gulf Coast. And the U.S. EXIM Bank is essentially operating as a rogue actor on fossil fuels. It propels us toward climate catastrophe by ignoring U.S. commitments to end public finance for fossil fuels and President Biden's executive orders. And we need the U.S. to lead here, to support a proposed plan at the OECD, the Organization of Rich and Wealthy Countries, to end $44 billion from rich countries a year that's financing fossil fuels through export finance. But since EXIM won't listen to the White House, we also have to push people in Congress and the general public to stop this madness. Stop! By banning EXIM from supporting fossil fuels and ideally ending all forms of public subsidies for fossil fuels, as proposed in the End Polluter Welfare Act by Senator Sanders and Representative Omar. Woo! Yeah, we can cheer that on. End Polluter Welfare Act. But we can't continue business as usual. We know that. You know that. That's why we're here today. Because we know that by financing projects worth tens of billions of dollars that expand oil and methane gas infrastructure on almost every continent on Earth, EXIM is locking in decades of greenhouse gas emissions that effectively torpedo the U.S. aim and world global goal of keeping climate change increases to 1.5 degrees Celsius. To achieve that goal, the world needs to achieve that goal, the world needs to get to net zero emissions by 2050. And as the International Energy Agency made clear 3 years ago, in the first year of the Biden administration, that path to net zero means no new investment in coal, oil, or methane gas around the world.
Right.
Yeah. No new oil, no new gas, EXIM.
No new oil.
Let's hear it again. Let's hear it. No new oil.
No new oil.
No new gas.
No new gas.
That's right. But now I want to talk about one particular project, because EXIM is now looking to advance an especially disastrous methane gas project in Mozambique in southern Africa. Shame.
Shame.
French oil supermajor Total Energies' $20 billion Mozambique LNG project at Afungi. For those of you who aren't familiar with the project, it lies in a complicated, high conflict area in the northern province of Cabo Delgado, where an insurgency has raged for years, and where residents displaced by methane gas projects claim they've received inadequate compensation for their land. The conflict has stalled the gas project, which was approved under the Trump administration, since early 2021, when one of the most deadly terrorist attacks since 9/11 occurred in the town of Palma, the epicenter of gas projects in the region, and killed more than 1,000 people.
That ain't right.
That ain't right.
That ain't right.
Rwandan and South African military and security contractors have been brought in, but seemingly to protect Total's oil and gas investment, in addition to the Mozambican military and police. Reports from this hard-to-reach area suggest that civilians have suffered a range of human rights violations and abuses by the military and paramilitary forces present, and that the attacks have ramped up in the last 6 months, and that gas development is continuing to fuel the conflict. In 1 month in 2024 alone, 100,000 people in Cabo Delgado were displaced by attacks or fears of attacks in the province, including some 60,000 children. Shame. But during this same period, the CEO of the oil company behind the project has been pushing for it to proceed, including with financing from US EXIM. And bad news, folks. EXIM seems to be moving toward approving this project, approving the financing. So I want to be clear, and I want us all to keep in mind the example of Mozambique here in our minds as we rally for climate justice. We also have to be rallying for human rights and recognizing that we don't want the U.S. government or any agent of the U.S. government, including the U.S. Export-Import Bank, to be complicit in these human rights abuses. But let's be clear. If EXIM greenlights this project, not only is it continuing to cynically and roguely undercut U.S. efforts to address the climate crisis, but make no mistake, folks, it will have blood on its hands. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Show me what democracy looks like.
This is what democracy looks like.
Show me what democracy looks like.
This is what democracy looks like.
Show me what democracy looks like.
This is what democracy looks like.
I'm excited to introduce our next speakers, Jacob Freeman, Roman Schaefer-Mentor, and Ahmed Alib. These three activists are based in Central Florida and have led a long-lasting impact within numerous local, national, and international climate spaces. Jacob founded Fridays for Future Volusia in 2022 and is a co-organizer for ELCAL USA, where the National Youth Statement on Climate is drafted, and has conducted microplastics research. Rowan has led different campaigns within Fridays for Future Volusia and has extensively worked with their high school's Students for Environmental Action Club. Ahmed has worked with the UN Ocean Decades Youth Advisory Council, co-founded FXV's International Florida chapter, conducted climate research, and wrote a children's book about climate disparities. Both Jacob and Ahmed will be studying climate-adjacent disciplines at Harvard, and Rowan will focus on biochemistry at the University of Florida. Please welcome Jacob, Rowan, and Ahmed.
Did you know that Mozambique is home to 5,500 species and 4,271 species of terrestrial wildlife? From its toucans to its tortoises, did you know that Guyana is home to more than 8,000 plant species alone? Did you know that Papua New Guinea has the highest marine biodiversity richness in the entire Pacific Ocean? My name is Jacob, and these examples underscore how the actions of the U.S. Export-Import Bank in each nation mentioned above threaten our planet's delicate symbiosis. Financing new EXIM fossil fuel projects is a harmful move, and future generations look at the blood on their hands as a result. Despite the possibility of clean energy alternatives and Bahrain's biodiversity, EXIM has put forth $500 million into expanding oil and gas wells within its borders. And financing fossil fuels not only leads to the disruption of local communities and ecologies, but the establishment of a bad precedent for all climate activists globally. I can relate to this impact of such climate change-related instances, as many peers of mine lost their homes during the treacherous flooding during Hurricane Ian in 2022. Unfortunately, these storms are only getting worse every single year, and climate change is not just some abstract topic. It's a movement of collective experience, our experience. The climate is changing, and so must we, and the time is now for us to act on EXIM. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Rowan, and I have joined my peers to illuminate the most pressing issue of our generation. Our fight for our future and home should be of the utmost importance, as it is necessary for the survival and prosperity of generations to come. In my own home, I have seen the impacts of greed and ignorance through the wrath of boundless storms that have caused utter destruction and chaos in my community. Fossil fuels are detrimental to the health of humanity through their toxic gases, and these emissions are creating our changing climate. Export-Import Bank of the U.S. is using taxpayer money to aid in fossil fuel projects. These projects are not only harmful to our own pockets, but the wealth of our ecosystems and natural life. Help us litigate EXIM immoral actions by holding them accountable for their wrongdoings to the state of our world and future.
Hello everyone, my name is Ahmed Aldeeb, and I'm here today because our fight for climate justice is a fight for our lives and the lives of future generations. The U.S. EXIM Bank continues to greenwash its image, but we know the truth. This bank funnels billions into destructive fossil fuel projects, and we won't stand for it. Growing up by the riverside in Munafaya, Egypt, I saw firsthand how climate change wreaks havoc on our health and communities. I watched as rising temperatures brought about respiratory illnesses, heat stroke, and waterborne diseases. I witnessed the struggle of my family and neighbors. The climate crisis is a health crisis, and every fossil fuel project EXIM funds is another blow to the well-being of people globally. We must hold EXIM accountable and demand an end to their reckless financing. Our planet is on fire, and we cannot afford to stand by while institutions like EXIM fuel the flames. This is our movement to make a stand. Our voices, our actions, and perseverance can turn the tide. For the sake of our planet, for the health of our communities, and the future of generations to come, we must end fossil fuel financing now. EXIM Blink
Has blood
On
their hands.
Woo! Thank you all for coming to this critical action today. Actions like these may not always be in the eye of the public, but this is where the big decisions, the decisions that affect our futures are made. 2, 4, 6, 8, save the earth, it's not too late. 2, 4, 6, 8, save the earth, it's not too late.
A big thank you to all the amazing speakers and participants who've come out from all over the country, and shout out to all the organizers who've been making this action happen, including the digital disruption. Can we give it up again for all the amazing speakers? Because while we are witnessing more climate disasters that are fueled by the U.S. Export-Import Bank, today is a refusal to live in the shadow of the fossil fuel industry, and we will keep showing up until the U.S. stops funding dirty energy projects and ends fossil fuels. End the era of 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 fossil fuels. Woo! All right. Yes.